going to be your moderator for today, and I'm going to expect that we cooperate with each other. And I know when it comes to time management, I may not be the best friends, but I think for the interest for us to deliver, we're going to do it as a team. I want to welcome you for these discussions on the public dialogue, on the theme, the youth citizenship space in the post-election era. And I am sure that most of us, we know we just came out from the elections, and I'm sure that in the post-election, we have our minds to reflect on what so happens and what we think could have happened. I'm going to request a representative of Youth Aid Africa to come and give us an opening remark. And I therefore welcome the Executive Director of Youth Aid, Mr. Alexander, please.
Thank you so much, Kenneth Oluma. My name is Alexander Chokishka. I work with Youth Aid Africa as the Executive Director. And I'm so happy to have all of us here. It's therefore my singular honor and privilege to welcome you to this place. In a special way, allow me to thank Uganda Youth Network for having allowed to be part of this, and not just be part of it, but also put a very big financial hand to have this event a success. I also thank the Youth Aid Africa team for having worked tirelessly to make sure that we have this day so far as a success, and I'm very hopeful that with your cooperation and involvement, we shall have it a success indeed. I wish to recognize the presence of my teacher, Devesa Mwamusia. It's been a while ever since I sat in his classes, and today is just like those classes, and I hope that these, my friends, will reap a lot from your wisdom, especially when it comes to issues of citizenship, young people, and the history of this country. I will not take much of the time. I really have nothing much to say because I'm also eager to learn from this engagement. We are going to be here for 2 or so hours, and I hope that we shall make the best use of it and we shall reap big from it. Thank you so much, Oluma. I wish you guys the best of this engagement.
Thank you very much. I want to take the opportunity to invite the representative of the Uganda Youth Network to give us, so Madam Isabella, you're most welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, in your respective capacities, you are very much welcome. I am the program officer in charge of policy advocacy and engagement at the Uganda Youth Network. I bring you greetings from our Executive Director, Ms. Lillian Bagala. She would have loved to be part of us today, but they had an impromptu board meeting that she had to be part of, and so she wasn't able to be here. For those of you who have not come across the Uganda Youth Network, we are the leading youth umbrella organization in Uganda with over 48 networks subscribing to us. Individually, we have over 148 organizations that are run by young people. Some of them are non-government organizations, others are community-based organizations, others are clubs, and each of them subscribes to us as a network, and we are proud to be affiliated with each and every one of them, which includes Youth Aid Africa. Our work is basically to ensure that we have a young person that is fully engaged in governance processes in this country. And we do that through our different programming. We are big on policy advocacy and engagements. We are big on democratic governance. We are also big on membership development, so we give back a lot to the members that subscribe to us in terms of institutional development and other capacity building initiatives. This particular program that brings us today here is under our democratic governance component, and the program officer for the democratic governance component is actually here, Receiver under Fiona. So she runs our DG component, and Keeping the Promise is a project that is under that particular component. It's a project that was launched pre-elections, and it was basically supposed to ensure that we had a peaceful interaction pre, during, and post the 2016 election process. This particular dialogue is the last of very many dialogues that we've had from about December 2015. So this is about the last dialogue that we are having under this project as we close it. This particular project is supported by Crossing Borders, which is a Dutch institution that gives money for this. We have been working with universities through this project. We've also been working with communities in Kampala, in Wakiso, and in Gulu to ensure that young people continued having a conversation around ensuring that there was meaningful engagement around elections and also post-elections. That notwithstanding, this dialogue does not mean that UUNET closes the chapter on having conversations with young people. We still have a lot of opportunities in our other departments. We run a leadership academy, which we encourage all of you to participate in. We are proud to be associated with Ms. Olive Namazi, who is a product of our academy. Kennedy is a product of our academy. Olive went through our academy, and we are proud to be associated, so we encourage that each and every one of you goes through it. We also have programs in Kampala in the divisions of Machindi and Nakawa. If you're interested in being part of governance issues, KCCA, and so on and so forth, we are happy to work with you. And in case you have any questions, in case you have any interests on how we can work together, we will be here at the end of the event, and we will be more than happy to take on more young people, because that is what we do. It's the reason we exist as a Uganda Youth Network. On that note, I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming. I would like to thank our speaker for the day for keeping time and for challenging all of us who came after him to keep time in the future. And I would also like to thank the ones who are yet to appear here, and hope that next time you will be on time. Thank you very much, and happy deliberations.
Our guest speaker for today, Professor Nebesa Mwambusha, please do come and share with these members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I don't know whether you will follow your time, because today I'm happy to be before the youth, and I would want to teach, not just present. Teaching, not even lecturing. So for that matter, I doubt whether I will be finishing in the time prescribed, but I will endeavor to do that. The Honorable Member of Parliament, the leadership of the youth organizations, and the councillors around, leadership of students, and all of you. Yes, I'm glad to be here to share with the youth this important topic for today. I want to invite you to make it participatory. I don't want it to be a monologue. I want it to be a dialogue. And in that respect, feel free to respond to my questions along the way, because I feel that they will be part and parcel of this discussion. And two, also, feel free to agree or disagree with me. This is a dialogue and a free speech. So please, don't censor yourself that you are going to disagree with the guest of honor or the main speaker. So having said that, I think let me start my presentation. I guess some of you may be having there was no way of projecting the slides. Okay, we shall see what to do. Let's proceed. The title I gave it within the theme which I was given is youth citizenship in Uganda, participating or being participated. For those who don't have, I repeat it, youth citizenship in Uganda, participating or being participated. I will briefly begin by giving a definition, not comprehensive, but at least a working definition, so that we can find how to move. Here, by citizenship, we are referring to the ability or the capacity and actions of an individual or a group of individuals in public affairs with a view to influencing or shaping his or their destiny. Youth citizenship, therefore, refers to capacity of the youth to influence public policy in decision making. The levels of youth citizenship can be measured by how much youth participate in public affairs and the influence they have in shaping these affairs. We want to understand this question of citizenship very clearly. Some people think that citizenship has only one definition, i.e., belonging to a country. Having the rights to belong to a country, you are entitled to a passport, you are entitled to privileges like voting and all that. This concept here is different. This one, they are there. So maybe let's go back to the outline. We shall pass through definition of citizenship, definition of participation, forms of expression and exercising citizenship, factors that affect youth citizenship, and why should the youth participate and why they should be encouraged to participate. A brief history of youth citizenship in Uganda, formal and informal structures maybe of participation, controlling youth citizenship, positive forms of youth participation, negative forms of youth participation, and does the presence of youth in the public sphere lead to influence? And we shall go the way forward. I think that is roughly what I will be following. So, genuine participation, you can go to the other slides now. They are moving very fast. Maybe let's begin from there. Genuine participation and citizenship is free and not coerced or induced. There is a difference between a citizen and a subject. We have been talking about this, and not very many people get it. I remember during the presidential debates, they asked that question, and I'm afraid to say none of the presidential candidates answered it. All the 8 failed to answer this question of citizen and a subject. And therefore we need to understand it. I thought many people maybe have even read Professor Mamdan's the whole book. The title is Citizen and Subject. But maybe today let's have some insights. Of course we cannot go into all the details of it. And maybe try to understand it. A citizen actively participates in public affairs to shape his, her destiny, or that of his country. A subject, on the other hand, is passive, is apathetic, is indifferent, or is cynical, and or is private, and awaits to consume policies by the state or the rulers. So you have to distinguish between a citizen and a subject. A subject is not necessarily one who is under a kingdom, as some people think, nor a citizen is necessarily one who is in a republic. You can have a subject and a republic, and a citizen and a monarchy. Citizenship is defined by one's active participation and influence in shaping public affairs. So let's not think like the subject is necessarily that one who is and a monarchy, and a citizen and a republic. Not quite, because you have citizens in UK, which is a monarchy, or Japan, or Netherlands, or whatever. But you could find in some republics of ours, people are more of subjects than citizens, as defined here now, in terms of active public engagement. You are publicly active active in public engagement, you are a citizen. You are passive, you are a subject, regardless of whether you are under monarchy or you are under a republic. Let's also get clear about this concept of definition of participation. Participation is taking part, involvement, or engagement in shaping public affairs. You exercise your citizenship through participation. That's what we are saying. And some scholars identified 8 forms of participation, popularly known as the ladder of participation. We are not going to go into these details because they could constitute a whole hour of a lecture. These are manipulation, therapy, informing, consultation, placation, partnership, delegation, and citizenship control. I will just make passing comments. You can participate and you are manipulated. You can be consulted, just consulted. You know, when we talk about consultation, somebody can bring you in a space and just consults you. And he or she can consider your submissions or may not consider, and in most cases, they don't consider. It is for purposes of legitimization. Somebody can just come to inform you that you come, you participants, dear participants, and then he lectures you. I think you are familiar with such audiences. Somebody invites you for a dialogue and dialogues you. He lectures or she lectures and says, now we are finished, I am busy, we shall meet next time. Now, that is merely informing you and participating you or dialoguing you. We can go quickly to another slide. At the lower ends or steps of this ladder of participation, people participate, but under constraints and influenced by those in power. Instead of free participation, the participant is participated or dialogued. This is not genuine participation, but manipulation. This is what I meant by being participated or being dialogued. In Kiswahili, to be participated, they call it kushirikishwa. So somebody can come and kushirikishwa you, and then you go home, sometimes feeling satisfied. And when you are a citizen, please do not accept to be participated. Participate, don't be participated. Let's look at forms of expressing and exercising citizenship. When you are a citizen, you express and exercise your citizenship. So I am just pointing out some forms in which citizens and the youth in this particular case express and exercise their citizenship. Citizenship, and in our case youth, citizenship can be exercised in many different ways. One, an individual or a group of individuals such as the youth can choose any one or a combination of these forms to exercise their citizenship. These forms of exercising citizenship include, but are not limited to, participation in elections. You participated in elections last time in one way or the other, and that was exercising your citizenship. And when you participate in elections, you are exercising your citizenship. the regime can use the carrot and the stick methods. Carrot for silencing you, and when you refuse, they cane you. Negative perceptions of politics, e.g., through the population. Politics will not change anything. Politicians are corrupt. Politics is for the rich. Politicians are liars. All these attitudes can affect one's ability to exercise his or her citizenship. Negative cultural perceptions such as politics is for men or the educated only. Yeah, especially our women folk, sometimes they say, politics is for men. That can affect women's citizenship. Why participate and promote citizenship anyway? Public participation teaches new ideas, public issues and values for nation building. People who are actively participating in public affairs, they are more informed and they are likely to contribute positively to nation building. Public participation inculcates values of tolerance, creates confidence and trust in an individual or the group. It creates a sense of solidarity. You can see how people were networking and networking. It creates that sense of solidarity. Participation cultivates a sense of serving the common good and cooperation, which are necessary ingredients for human survival. I dare say even for animal survival. Animals which cooperate have higher chances of survival than those which don't. Even at that level of the animals in the jungles. Lions, they go in a group, they protect the young ones. The leopard is alone. When it goes to hunt, something or somebody comes and kills its cub. But those which cooperate, they have a higher chance of survival than those which are isolated. So you can see cooperation is very, very critical. It increases, I have passed through that one. Let's look at brief history of youth citizenship in England. I'm saying brief because otherwise that would constitute more than even one lecture. The youth and the general public were largely subjects and not citizens in the pre-colonial era. In the pre-colonial era, youth were not participating in public affairs. Public affairs were largely decided and determined by a few members, normally in the kingdom areas aristocrats, or simply by a few elders. The rest of the people, that is subjects, were public policy takers or consumers. I'm not saying that youth were not involved in wars or whatever, but at the tail end, they were takers. They would order them to go and act, but not decision making, because they were subjects anyway. Public affairs were largely decided and determined. During the colonial period, it were mainly the Europeans and Indians who qualified to be citizens. They were actually, those foreigners were citizens, were under a different law, and the subjects of colonialism were under customary law. So there was that very big difference between they were like that for a long time. And they were not, the Africans were not in parliament, as you may recall, until after the Second World War. Parliament was dominated by the Indians and the English. And that's the history of our parliament, by the way. A parliament can, let me comment on this one. A parliament can be effective depending on its history. It was the British Parliament under the Chartist movements and others, actually, which it emerged and existed in order to tame the executive. Parliament was a created space by the people, by parliamentarians. They created a space to tame the executive. In Uganda, the history of parliament is that the executive creates parliament and then brings this parliament to endorse its its proposals. That is the history of Uganda's parliament, and Uganda parliament has to liberate itself. President Museveni one time actually said it, that I captured that parliament. You know, parliamentarians wanted to remove the executive there and his office so that they can get more office. He said, you people, you remember that we captured that parliament? And it has been like that. The British governor had captured it, Obote captured it, especially after the 1966 crisis. And the NRA came and captured it, and it is still under captivity. The British one, actually, it is the one which set the terms of the kings. It is Parliament which actually brought back a chance, said if you either come on our terms or you go away. And since then, Parliament created its own space vis-a-vis the executive. I thought I needed to explain that one a little bit, moving away from, maybe at one time I will get the opportunity to give the history of Parliament in comparison. Does presence lead to influence? The youth are in a big numerical social group in Uganda. The youth who are defined as those between the ages of 18 and 30, maybe you know better. You constitute about what percentage? Huh? 65, I think you are less than that. You are including the young ones who are not yet 18. But it's a sizable population. So how can such a population be vulnerable? And there is this narrative that the youth and women are vulnerable. I don't know why they even categorize together the youth and women. Why do they do it? Why is that narrative, the youth and women? Does it mean the women are infants even when they are 60 years old? Why do you say the youth and women? And why are youth vulnerable? A big population, the most educated, the most active, and they accept to be bracketed as vulnerable. How can somebody of 28, 27 years say he is vulnerable? But the narrative has defined them as vulnerable. The creation of youth structures under the NRM regime and the presence of a legal policy and institutional framework for youth inclusion has increased the presence of the youth in public political institutions such as local councils and parliament. The youth have got their throats in those, even there is the interest group in parliament. So it has increased the presence of the youth in institutions of decision making. And there are even youth who are now members of the cabinet, the national cabinet now, later on the district cabinet. The question is, has the presence of the youth in these decision-making spaces translated into youth citizenship and influence? I want you to have that question very clearly. Has it really? Has presence translated into influence? If not, then you have to do something. Because presence is important, no doubt about that. But you have to go beyond presence and influence. That is my take. There is mixed reaction to this question. There is a general perception that the youth as a social group and the constituency has been compromised by the ruling regime. That they have been compromised, that these councils have been put there to compromise them. But it is debatable. There is a perception that the youth in power have no power. Do you know there are some people in power without power? Yeah? That you can be in a position of power and responsibility, but you have no power to effect what you were mandated to do. Just window shopping. Yeah? You know this addition, I don't know mathematics, I left it very far. You see these issues sometimes are not algebraical. They are very complicated. That this plus this is equal to this. That you have these youth from these regions, from this place, you factor them here, and you say you have power. No. You can be in an office of power without power. There is, for example, the youth voice is missing in peace building. It has not been very prominent in peace building processes and the conflict management, in influencing bills and government policies. I heard the speaker from the Uganda Youth Network saying that you are involved in the youth in policy influence. Yes, I know. But how far have you gone? But do we even know how to influence and which offices to influence? If I asked, I said we can be participatory. Can you tell me the office responsible for clearing policies, which is the office which should be targeted? Policies of government. When we are making policies, in the process of policy making, some don't know that even the parliament doesn't make policies. Policies is a mandate of cabinet. Only that when they have got a financial aspect, they have to go to parliament, because parliament is the one which appropriates the budget. But if they don't have, parliament does not go there. That is the preserve of cabinet. But I am asking, which office is very central as a clearing house for policies in Uganda? I have to tell the youth that unless we shift away, okay, balance, I'm not saying people should not go for the other ones, but social justice, how many Ugandans are disturbed by the social justice in this country? Do you know that the gap between the rich and poor is widening every other day? The Gini coefficient in Uganda, go and look at it and see what it is. Some regions, look at most of these highly placed people and rich people shifted away from UPE schools and took their children to private schools. Now do you know where they are taking them? International schools. They are no longer going even to these other private schools, international schools. Yeah? Hospitals, they go to Aga Khan, Nairobi, South Africa, India, and Europe. They don't go to Murabi is not even there now. Is it Juju or something like that? They have left them for us, the Raka and fire. Why aren't people disturbed by the social injustice and economic injustice that is in the country? It's because of the problems of invisible power. People were disturbed in the 50s by the racists because they could see Wazungu. Now when the Africans came to practice injustice, people don't see it. It is invisible from their eyes. So anyway, you have to go to these ones. The youth must constitute themselves into a third force. We need a third force in Uganda. Otherwise we have remained stagnant. We need a third force. The youth must imbibe and internalize, if they have to do that, serving the common good. The principle of common good is absent in the youth today, or among Ugandans. It is just man for himself and God for us all. Common good principles, common good values must be promoted, must be the ideological foundation to inform the actions of the youth. Finally, assuming I have made sense, I recommend that the youth citizenship dialogues should be regularized to take place, say, every Saturday of every month. Every first Saturday of every month. The youth can write proposals now for youth citizenship dialogues, and we invite different people. I promise to participate, not necessarily as a facilitator, but as somebody who knows one or two things about citizenship, so that we create a critical mass of youth citizenship to change the tide of this country from individualistic pursuits to the common good. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Just said the citizenship and the youth participation, and I cannot add much more than that. This is how we're going to proceed. After the professor's presentation that has opened up our mind, we're going to have a panel of around 5 people that will come here. I'm going to ask my colleague to bring chairs here. These people are going to be able to break and digest whatever the professor has said, disagree as he said it, or agree with him. And then after that, we'll be able to open up the platform to all of us so that we can give us our views on what we think and also probably agree or disagree. Honorable Solomon, do you really think that the young people, with all the statistics that seems to be favoring them in terms of numbers, that they are up to the task of participation, but not only just participation, of influence as well? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, our dear participants and professor. I'm called Solomon Silwani. The name Silwani disturbs many people, but it's easy to pronounce. I'm the Member of Parliament from Ukoli, County Central. I'm a very new Member of Parliament. I replaced the former leader of opposition in Parliament, and I'm the Deputy Government Chief Whip in Parliament, or the Vice Chairperson of the NRM Parliamentary Caucus. I want first to thank Uganda Youth Network, because this is an organization I participated in starting some years back with the likes of Gimaras and Matovus, and for it to reach this level, when we are having such fruitful engagements, I think Uganda Youth Network and their partners are doing a great deal of work in this country. I didn't want to begin without saying that. I want to thank my professor for presenting such a wonderful paper, but very academic. The paper is very academic. It brings out many issues that are pertinent to youth participation, but also contradicts a lot. And when you look at what Professor has presented, Professor presents what a citizen is and takes us through, dissects and explains to us how youth can participate in governance and the development of this country. But then Professor comes in and looks at the current regime, for example, the current regime of Uganda, and talks about how the regime is suppressive. Then somewhere Professor says that the youth structures have been established by the current regime. You know, the regime of NRM established structures from the National Council, actually from the local council to the National Council to Parliament. This is the first regime in Uganda where youths are participating at all levels. I think what we should be talking is their participation influencing policy, and is it influencing change? I think that is the area where we should debate more, and then make youths get more involved into policy issues. Because I think the youth that are in the councils, that are in Parliament, maybe are not doing their work right, but they should just do their work and influence policy. But it's this government that has not suppressed youth, that has opened the space for youths to freely participate. Even in cabinet, Professor came out clearly and told us that in cabinet, youth are participating, and there are many youth ministers in this country. I think that was a contradiction that Professor did not bring out right. Then the other thing is, I agree with Professor that youths should steer more non-materialistic things than material. You know, in Uganda today we are destroyed. Professor was talking about a youth being taken to a hotel and being bought. This influence can be done to anyone. You know, influencing a human being. The moment you come to my home, I greet you well, I smile for you, we eat together. Chances are very high that you're going to vote for me, even if you are a professor. The moment I smile with you, interact with you, that reception alone wins the heart of a human being. And that is all human beings. So I think we should debate this more and see how we can tackle. And then the other issue is, Professor talks about militarizing, making youth become crime preventers, and training youth into militia groups as a negative outcome. I think this has helped youths more. You know, the crime rates in Uganda have been high, and you know, in any country that is at a takeoff stage, when you're reaching that level where even when it is a plane, when you're taking over, they tell you, fasten your seat belts, you're going to take over, put those papers up. Why? Because it is taking off. Uganda is at that level. America was here far back in the 1770s. They took off. When you look at these developed countries, Professor always talks about them. I mean, we should thank these youths who are participating in Uganda as crime preventers.
Wonderful. Just
who are participating.
Yes. You're saying Uganda is taking off. I just want to know. The professor indicated there is a wider gap. Are you indicating that the whole citizenry...
Any country that compare Uganda with countries that take Mauritius, 1962, Shankar takes over power in Mauritius. Uganda, Obote takes over power from the colonialists. Then you compare the growth in the two countries. Yes, the other one has taken more, but we are doing a lot. And Uganda is going to a takeoff stage. And the gap will even widen more. Because when you go to developed countries, look at the very developed countries. Now China is one of the serious countries in this continent. When you look at China, I mean, the gap is so big. That is not a problem. The problem is, let's just work hard to ensure that we are changing and improving our economy.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to come to Teremwa. You have heard the Honorable say Uganda is taking off, and we do not mind. The gaps will keep increasing. And the professor raised a very important thing, that the young people need to constitute themselves, first of all, to form a third force. I want us to understand, what is that third force? That third force fit in the bigger context of the gap that is being widened, as the prophet indicated, or the third force is the force that is seemingly taking off?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Honorable, for that introduction on the panel. Thank you, Professor Mwambutya, who happened to have taught me sociology at the College of Natural Sciences in Makerere. My name is Emmanuel Taremwa, and I'm very glad to be part of the Youth Aid platform and UNET in digesting the matters at hand. Now, Honorable says we are at a takeoff point. That is no problem, we are very excited, but to which direction? And is our jet really fueled? Or we shall be grounded very soon? So let me begin from where you actually asked me, that which kind of force can we make? And I will begin from where my professor kind of ended. That first of all, we have to be an informed and a united front. But also we must be a front that is able to formulate with clarity the kind of values that we have to aspire, that even when we are making our policies, these are the values on which our policies must coalesce. Now, our debate and dialogue, as Professor suggested, must be more philosophical than political and than legal, as we usually see in our dialogues. Of course, when he was trying to say that the president is a parliamentarian, the honorable minister, the honorable MP, strongly disagreed, and he said that's a legal stand. But the more we can become realistic, the more we can become more philosophical than other than going political, the better we shall raise ourselves as the youth. So can we identify the values that we espouse as the youth? The other time I was following the elections in the US, and I looked at the youth movement, where we saw that Bernie Sanders, more than even Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, had the majority of the youth backing him. Why? Because the youth looked at their country and understood that they need a more socialist system. They need a system that works for everyone. And no matter the words of Clinton and the words of Trump, they came up and supported Bernie Sanders. So we need to understand what kind of system shall work for us. Therefore, we can argue for a more meritocratic system, a more egalitarian system, a system that looks at equality and equal distribution of resources, a system that looks at priority policy formulation, so we can demand for a more prioritarian system, and so as a front, we know what we are fighting for, so that when UNET, when YAA, YAA, yes, and any other platform is bringing up suggestions, they are actually surrounding these kinds of points. Therefore, we can know what to demand, we can know what to foster if we have more and more united debate on these core matters. That when we are asking for freedom, we shall not ask for merely a form of freedom, which is the absence of interference, the one that allows us to demonstrate, the one that allows us to campaign, but also an effective freedom that gives us the capacity to take on the mantle, the capacity to invest, the capacity to speak up to the systems and its wrongs. I therefore think that, for example, what we have seen in the South African incident of Julius Malema and the economic freedom fighters movement, waking up and saying, no, we as the freedom fighters movement shall go against the historical ANC. But here, the system is that we inherit the wrongs. The NRM has had its achievements, it has had its wrongs, but we inherit them wholeheartedly without filtering what we want and what we don't want. And therefore, we can be a more constructive force than a passive force that we are now, than a manipulative force that we are now. We have seen some incidents, for example, I can give an example in Turkey. When opportunists want to take up Erdogan's government, it's the youth actually that jumped on the tanks, that jumped on the road, that went on the roads and demonstrated and stopped a political movement that was kind of misguided and out of touch with what the young population in Turkey was fighting for. So unless we begin to go back to what is actually our fight, what are the values that we espouse, the systems that we are living under now have discarded some of the values. They have said you can be rich so long as the people who voted you still believe in you, you can do whatever you want. What the professor has been describing here, you can go to a conference, you can go to a meeting, whether in Chankwanzi or in Kasangati, and you can have money and go back and manipulate the youth. And therefore the youth have also been bandwagoned.
So Tadema, can I ask you, now in that perception that you have, where does that leave the youthful generation of this country?
Well, it doesn't leave it. Actually, it formulates its backbone. It's the backbone on which the youth and the youth movements should operate. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for us to mobilize. It's going to be hard to answer the professor's question that if the youth council movements were waved away, would we miss them? Why? Because the people that we lead, the young population that they lead, are out of touch. They don't understand their agenda. They don't understand the values for which they fight for. They don't know the kind of fight they are in. Therefore, it is hard to mobilize the young. It is hard to mobilize the vulnerable groups because we lack a philosophical agenda. We lack a third force attitude. We can create a third force, but if the third force has the same values, has the same agenda as the existing force, then it cannot be a third force. So a third force must have a unique message to give to the people, which is the message that I give an example about. The message of Bernie Sanders in the American movement. A socialist, when he stood up and said, these pharmaceuticals, these Wall Street moguls are the ones supporting the Clinton campaign. Therefore, how can we just be Democrats and vote Clinton without questioning where she gets the money to finance the campaigns? And you can see it here. The politics are they are monetary politics. And the youth who are stranded economically cannot participate politically, even when they want. So
are you trying to respond to the bigger context that the professor said?
Yes.
The young people have been driven away by the materialistic impressions.
And I can tell you that in my discussion, I show you that it's not largely the government, it's not largely the system, but we ourselves need some internal reorganization, need some awakening. We cannot blame everything on the system. The system survives on us.
Thank you.
And when we redefine the rules, then the system can bow down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to come to Honorable Veronica. the professor did indicate and asked a very critical question, which many of us went silent about, that who would miss these formalized youth structures if today we wake up that they have been abolished? It speaks a lot as a member of parliament, but also as a person who has seen the youth engagements and have been involved in these processes. I want us to give us your context. Do we need these structures to build a youth force, to make youth voices heard? Or is it a reality that the impression that the youth voice seems to be lacking in the space?
Thank you, Professor, for the wonderful presentation. I'm Veronica Nanyondo, commonly known as Beya Bilime, Woman M People Command District, because I fight for the farmers, most especially the agricultural prices to be increased, especially in my district. Professor talked about that the parliament has a big number, but the voice is not heard, especially for the youth. That's right. I agree with the professor, but why? It's us, the youth, as he said. I came with a small presentation. The youth, among what he presented, the youth are being used by those government officials, all the big people in the government, to fulfill their agendas. So as youth, they can't come out to fight for or to say the things that affect the youth because they are silenced by the big people in the government. As he gave an example, being taken to a hotel to eat chips and you end up voting for somebody, is not going to help you. I urge the youth to actively involve in politics. And as he said, for the big number of members of parliament, I would advocate we come out and ask for an increase for youth participation in parliament, to increase the number of youth to participate in parliament, members of youth parliament. Because as he said, most of the youth come from town. They don't know our problems as village people or as constituency people. What I would wish to urge you or to add on is that as youth we should come out and take up these posts. We should advocate for you members for an increment in representation in parliament.
And I would like to thank the professor for the presentation and everyone who is around. Thanks for coming. My question already comes in as what is the role of the youth? It is a myth. Consultations are done. You can organize a workshop to consult people and someone will ask you, is there a transport refund? Where does that leave us? We've made ourselves to be, everything is commercial. Professor talked about the buying of people, okay, not buy, something like that. I can visit, you can be an aspirant for a post, then you come, we may meet, you give me your money, but this is secret ballot. The people who are in trouble, the LCs, is it in January? This thing of lining up, there is no hypocrisy there. I can eat your money, and to be honest, was it 2006? These NRM primaries, LCs, something like that. People used to, different candidates would come home and give us money. We were young. I think I don't know what was wrong, but we ate money for everyone. What did they forget? It was a secret ballot. And we all knew who were to vote. It is not about money, but where have you placed yourself? Then you realize when you see, we have a lot of mess in the country about us, about the system and everything, but the blame goes back to government. It goes back to government, but what is your role as a youth?
demonstrations are taking place. I've never seen an old person on the street carrying pigs. Never. Even those senior leaders, you never see them, but it's the youth. Why you? And then you throw 5 pigs today, next week you come back, a piglet is just 50,000 shillings. Can't you just take that pig and start up a business instead of throwing it to the street, and then tomorrow you come complaining that unemployment is very high? We have this attitude, bad attitude towards work. We've all gone to school, some of you are still at Makere. But we are not all supposed to end up in office, however much we want that. Most of you want to stay in Kampala. I once worked in Chenjojo district, the same program, the SAGE program. But people are engaging in, okay, we have different programs that are around, but they do not favor everyone. In Chenjojo, even someone who does not own land can do what? Can engage in farming. How? People just engage in, okay, you find my landlord is rich with land, but they don't have money. They don't have money to engage in farming, and the main activity carried out is still growing in Chenjojo, or even growing trees. What do they do? If you do not have land, you go to the landlady, make an agreement with the landlady. Whatever you plant, you make an agreement that after harvest you share the what? You share the harvest according to what? According to your agreement. We are not. Kampala is not the source of everything. You can as well go back to your villages. You buy food in Kampala, but it does what? It comes from the villages. Why don't we go back to our villages and utilize what we want? Professor talked about does presence mean influence? Since time immemorial, we've had youth representation in Parliament, National Youth Council, local councils, and everywhere. But what is the impact? People do not feel the impact of the youth voice. Advocating for more youth representation, will it help us? What have the predecessors done? Nothing. They've done something, but what is the percentage? It is not about numbers in Parliament. Then the policies that favor, do they really favor all the youth? Where does it place you as a youth? We have OWC. OWC, you cannot say it favors the youth. Yes, it favors some, depending on how creative you are.
What do we have?
OWC, Operation Wealth Creation. There is an issue of land ownership. Most of the crops that are given, most of the seedlings given to people in that program, they take years to mature. How am I going to plant coffee on land that is not mine? Sometimes we need that engagement. So most programs are on board, but people are not consulted. The other day, a certain woman was given oranges, and she said, I did not need them. What is that? Are people consulted, or someone has to plan and then programs are implemented by us?
So I'm going to ask you.
Yes.
Because you have given us 2 scenarios, you're advising the young people to go to the village, giving the examples, and then you're saying some of these programs, when they come, they seem not to be relating to what the people want.
Yes.
So whose challenge is it? The young people say, this is what we want, and then the missing gap is that whatever comes seems not to be correlating with them. They still continue to complain. Then the perception seems to be that they do not want to go and do ABCD. Who is the problem?
We are all to blame. Government to start with. Government brings up policies, and then implementation is something else. Allow me quote the Youth Livelihood Program. I really don't like going that direction, but allow me, because it's not even my department. Then Youth Livelihood. How many of our youths participated in the decision-making, budgeting, and planning of that program? But now we see, as in a certain district, we attended a departmental meeting, and a question was forwarded by the DCDO to the youth focal person. This person was asked, what's the status of the Youth Livelihood Program in the community? And the youth focal person was like, the CDO said some groups don't exist, others disappeared. And then the next day we see youth leaders, coming to arrest fellow youth. Where does that leave us? you talk to the youths, people are supposed to get 12 million, but someone got 7M because the other portion was shared among the leaders. Why should they arrest the youth and not those leaders?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, and our presenters up there. Thank you, Kennedy. Well, I will be very brief. I'll speak about only like 3 things. Professor and all the members have talked about the youths being used. Probably, I usually call it as political condoms. I'm sorry to use that word. But realize that one of the reasons as to why the youths are being vulnerable to such activities is because they are not economically empowered. And what do I have to say? What am I saying as a way forward? We have only 5 MPs representing the youth, but as Honorable has said, we have a youthful parliament. So when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to budget allocations, please support the allocations of the youth, so that we can at least empower our youth more. Because even in these youth livelihood programs, you find that they are giving money, but the money is not enough. It cannot start up a substantial business. So that is one of my way forwards. And then another reason, Professor asked, will the youth councils be missed? Yes, they will be missed, but not to a smaller extent. But why? These people are there, but you sympathize with them. They are there, but some of them don't have leadership and management skills. What am I saying today? I'm calling upon UNET, I'm calling upon Youth Aid Africa. Please interest yourself in these youth councils. Interest yourselves in training these people. Give them the knowledge. Because in the past, the youth councils were based on ideology. But today, when people leave Nambole after bribing people and they get votes and they go through, that is it. They just wait for their salaries on their accounts. But that should not be the case. They don't do it because they want, but because that is the situation. That is what the predecessors have been doing. So please, the youth networks, please help these people in mentoring them and training them and giving them information. Then as I conclude, some of our youths here are so fixated with parliament. You think that the only place where you can influence is parliament. No, that is not the case. I'm glad that there's a guild president here, because personally I'm also a former guild president of Chambogo. Well, you can influence in many more positions at the university. Even in the mainstream politics, you find that most of our youths that we finished with university, they were ministers, they had been trained, they had a lot of potential. Most of them shot for parliament. And they left LC3 posts vacant. Those posts are now filled with people who are very old, who don't have any knowledge, who have not gone to school, who don't understand budgets, who understand nothing. So what am I saying today? There are leaders here at the universities, there are leaders in youth councils here. But 2021 will come. But don't fixate yourself with parliament. Start small, you will grow what? You will grow big as you gain what? Also experience.
As young people, I think we should engage in government programs at hand. For example, I had people talking about a livelihood program. We have capital venture fund, we have microfinance fund, and many other programs that are going on. Young people, we should take heart and we ask about these programs that are ongoing. Instead of only coming out and criticizing, before even you give it a try, give it a try. And if there is anything going wrong, you come out and single out that issue, so that we can always come out and help. Another issue is that I am trying to call upon civil societies to help us engage young people about the ongoing programs. Wherever I go, I've been in these civil society meetings, dialogues and all that. All they do is just to talk ill about government. You should tell people what government programs are ongoing. It's more like giving someone who is depressed, someone has a problem, and just put a gun there and be like, someone tells you their problems, I want to kill myself, and be like, okay, you put a gun there. It's more like telling them, kill yourself. You only come here to criticize. You do not give solution, way out. Learn to write concepts, to encourage young people to engage in government programs that are helping them to change their well-being or willingness.
I will technically speak of a few things. The issue of the youth, for a long time now, it has been rhetorics, because we have talked day in, day out. I will first look at what my honorable MP has talked about. He thinks the government is doing its part. He thinks the MPs who are youth, like he has quoted, around 60% of the youth are in parliament. That means that the youth are fully represented. You can't have a 60% and then you lose out. That means there is a problem. But I will specifically speak of the income inequality gap as in reference to what you were saying, that we're on the take-off stage. When a country is at take-off stage, you are most likely going to meet difficulties if you are not prepared for the take-off stage itself. Who is going to prepare for us? It's not the youth. It's the policymakers. One of the conferences I attended, the Youth Aid Africa conferences in Makere, I remember asking, among the gathering here, who are the youth who were gathering in that meeting? I asked, who is a policymaker? Who is an implementer? Is any youth here implementing the policies? He has told us they sit there, but has he presented the case of the youth? I have seen on several occasions, like I can actually be happy if he can quote for us.
1 minute. You can summarize?
Yeah, he can quote for us one bill that was taken to the president and it was brought back and the parliament decided to take it back to him and he refused to sign it and they passed it. Just one bill. Therefore, I will conclude by saying I have had some few things to put down. One, if the youth, I will read them very well because they are very important for me. After realizing that it's all about the middle income men holding power, men holding the wealth, this has created the income inequality gap. The poor are becoming more poorer, and the rich are becoming more richer, and the rich still think life is okay because they have slapped the price on us. They already know our price. Professor, we are being taken to these hotels, and we're enjoying the food, the pizzas and the chicken and the sips. Eh? It's because they already know the price. They already know they have made us paupers. They already know we are owning nothing. They already know that the only way we can survive is by them deciding what should be done.
Everybody starts with criticizing the youth that you should do agriculture, all that. But I don't know whether any of you, before joining parliament, you actually did this. I would like to ask one of the honorables, before joining parliament, did you have any chicken? Did you have any goats or pigs or what? Everybody just castigates the youth, do agriculture or what, but all of them, I'm very sure, somehow they don't their children or somehow they are actually looking for jobs in offices for their kids or relatives. You bribe your way there. All you do is say, do agriculture, but you are actually not doing it. And also another thing, the former bill, you said that youth should not aim for parliament first. I would also like to just ask you whether you first contested LC or what. All you do is say all this negative stuff, but I don't know whether you put yourselves in our shoes, or you actually do that for the youth that are in your life. I'm saying, like your sisters or what.
Thank you.
That's why.
Now to the issue, Professor, you asked a pertinent question. Is it true that indeed the youth are vulnerable? Professor, in a society where the quality of education is such that you're giving at Makerere now compared to that was being given to you by those that taught you people, in a society where there is this politics of patronage that you're talking about yourself, in a society where the young person cannot find a job after they have graduated, in a society where even if you join the military, it is alleged that promotion is on other issues but not merit, in a society where nepotism is entrenched in the whole system, Professor, if vulnerability is being prone to temptation, being susceptible to being hurt and wounded, then my answer to your question would be that yes, indeed, the youth are vulnerable. But the bigger question should be, should we fall prey? Should we allow ourselves to therefore be vulnerable and fall into that vulnerability? The answer is no. And Professor, the next time that perhaps you're requested by an NGO to present a paper, request them that let you present a paper on how the youth can overcome the vulnerability that they find themselves in. Thank you.
My name is Charles Okoth. Unlike other people talk about universities, I'm a young man from an institution, MTA, actually the Guild president. Now, prior to other speakers, the professor talked about the council, the youth council and engagement. If they are actually washed away, will they actually have people who miss them? I strongly agree to that. Apart from the situation where we have actually youth contributing in different capacities, getting engagements here and there, but they're actually not, should I say, there's window shopping. They're actually there, but what they say is not what they take into practice. We have had youth getting engaged in different platforms, giving out very important views like we've had from the different speakers, but actually these things are not taken into practice. If we could get a meritocratic kind of system, where even the appointment is based on merit, we could get things like age limits, where youth could get more engaged into these political affairs, and they could impact this country positively. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moga Arafat from Makere University, Students Guild. I totally agree with the professor on this point, whereby majority of the youth are just subjects rather than citizens. And this is as a result of political prostitution, as the professor has said. The way forward on this, even when we have 60% of the parliament youthful, but it is still less productive. And the problem is on attitude, the negative attitude we have. We need to change our attitude. We don't need to be used. We need to begin looking at the innovation. Let's be innovative. Let's try by all means to find that we are in position to provide the knowledge, the basic knowledge needed for the youth to develop. Next thing, I have a question for the Honorable Member of Parliament, who's pretending that perhaps the Parliament is doing much. To me, I totally disagree with you. We may not fix ourselves in politics, political sector, no. We can't go for agriculture, we can't go for other things. But have you ever realized that even in agriculture there's a problem? You as a Parliament, have you ever thought about the effects brought about by climate change? Please, I want the answer in the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to give a true example about the professor's submission is in this room. One, the factors affecting youth citizenship in Uganda, I can summarize in one example. If amongst the youth in this very room, we have a feel of separation, that there is a favored group and the unfavored group amongst us, that is a problem. One, we have very many who can all submit on the same platform. That is not possible. Then secondly, if you want to consider the largest degree of manipulation is again in this room. If a honorable member, Sian Solomon, okay, that name is very botanical, I'm very sorry. Now, if Honorable Solomon, youthful as you are, you still think that the government giving us representation on all levels is a favor, my friend, give us a break. We are football referees, by the way, I must tell you this. When you score a beautiful goal, we do not celebrate with you. Tackle someone, we give you a red card. So it's a responsibility of government to give us representation. Then, but that representation is manipulated. One, for you if you sit there comfortably and say, no, government is doing well and Uganda is at take-off stage. Let me give you some history. Botswana, Malaysia, South Korea, they got independence with Uganda, 1962, 1966. But as we speak right now, Botswana is a middle-income country. Do you know why? They empowered their youth through what they call the Ipirereng. The Ipirereng contributes over 41% to the youth, but in Uganda they can't empower the youth because they know once you empower the youth, that is a formidable third force. There is deliberate move by government. We must agree, and we must choose to disagree when we fail to agree. That is logic enough. But in Uganda, there is a deliberate move by government. A minute, please. Two, disempower the youth. One, they have scrambled civic conscience. When we talk about political education, for me, I was a political education student and have this information. But as we speak right now, it's no more, because it gives us conscience about the wrongdoings of government. The intent and the plan of government is, one, to stay in power. Secondly, now, when you talk about courses, as we speak, Makerere University, ethics...
Mr. President, please, I have time to manage. You have got to summarize.
As I conclude, what is the way forward? One, we need to empower our youth. The government has to empower the youth, whether for political benefits or employment benefit. The Youth Loan Scheme 2013, where you contribute 250 billions to the youth, is not enough. One, we are 25 million Ugandans, the youth. Just divide that money and see how much you get. 1,000, my brother. Please, we need to get one viable way forwards of empowering the youth. And then 3, the youth must take a center stage in changing their mentality, because even us are a problem. Thank you very much, Professor.
When you come here and begin blaming the youth for work attitude, that youth are vulnerable, this is where it all goes on. It all goes wrong. If you begin saying that you yourself, you are vulnerable, how are you going to improve your life? Where the field is not leveled,
please, can you help me? Can you help me answer the question?
The National Youth Council is mandated to carry out functions for the youth of Uganda. 3 of them. One is to unify the youth of Uganda. This is the mandate of the National Youth Council, to unify the youth of Uganda. Second is to engage them into productive activities which could improve their lives. And finally is protect them against any form of manipulation. Now, if you are alleging any other kind of mandate besides those 3 mandates, then I do not know, and I think you are trying to assert it on a wrong institution, which is true. If you expect National Youth Council to come and earn for you or give you livelihood in your pocket. My brother here has been using an example that if you divide the money of youth livelihood amongst the entire youth population of Uganda, each person gets 1,000. Is it possible for a government to empower every youth of Uganda? Yes. The best thing to do is to empower a certain proportion of people. For example, this can be done by, for example, creating a friendly policies which could encourage, for example, industrialization, and through promoting industrialization, youth can be taken up within this industry.
Thank you. Good enough you have the platform to advance these advices.
Someone talked about the SAGE program. It is very hard to swindle money for a program where there is full participation. The SAGE program, we are exceptional. I think other programs have issues because people did not participate. With SAGE, we participate right from budgeting, planning to implementation, even accountability. We do home visits for those elders. About the youth livelihood program, I don't think government made a directive. Yes, too bad the youth are being imprisoned, but you made an agreement. Before getting that money, you made an agreement for someone. Imagine I lend you money, even if it's 500 shillings. I may not come to you to ask for it, but it's an agreement. You rather say, give me. Okay, sorry for quoting the SAGE program so much, but then for them, the elderly, we give them a monthly grant. They don't have to return, and they know it. But with youth livelihood program, before you get this money, problem is you're supposed to get 12 million, someone gets 7 million. Please do not sign for that money. Do not. Because the ministry technocrats go to the field, they need accountability of 12 million, and you're telling us the CDO asked for 2 million, the DCDO asked for 1 million, and we used 7 million. How are you going to account for money that you did not get? Do not sign for what you're not going to use. Government did not give a directive to the youth to eat that money. Too bad you're being arrested. Do not sign for money you're not going to use, because that is what is going to be accounted for.
Thank you so much. Let me be so brief. Now, I'm a very political person, but I like it when I attack such issues apolitically. Because let's go back to ourselves. What is the legacy of the empowered youth? What legacy does the empowered youth in this country have? And this is something that we have been grappling with for a long period. We have a 60% youth parliament. We have very many empowered youth, but what legacy do they have? Because without that legacy, we shall not win. we shall not win the trust of the people we want to lead. We shall not win the trust of the communities, not even the trust of the politicians. You talked about the youth livelihood program. I got that money when I was in second year at campus, 20 million. And let me tell you, I had to pay the loan. I had to empower the other youths. So what do you do with the money you get? So that from that legacy, we can empower you more. But also, looking at the implementation of these policies from the government, which people are you giving the money? What do you have on the ground in terms of infrastructure, in terms of information, for the people to utilize the money we're giving them? Because that's what governments are there to do. You give the money, you follow the people. You give them the information, you follow them with the money, then you go ahead and monitor how they use that money. Lastly, in the midst of all this confusion, who benefits? Who benefits from when we attack each other? Who benefits from when we eat the money in the conferences? Who benefits? The time we know who benefits, then we shall effectively collaborate and attack that monster head on. Because without doing that, we shall eat each other, we shall finish each other, those who benefit shall benefit more. Therefore, let us desist from the divisive message of our own oppressors and use the same front with, for example, I want to ask the guild president, are you part of the consultative meeting to open the Makerere University?
Yes. Yes and no.
I mean the visiting committee.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. That tells you what is happening in there. So let the youth be a united front in every matter, knowing what they're supposed to do and demanding for exactly that, not rhetoric.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Personal, but as youth, we should stop being theoretical citizens and think of being practical citizens. What am I saying is that how are you benefiting the community as a youth? Being theoretical means that you just think to become a citizen, I have to get a passport, a permit, or what. But for me, I'm practical in a way that, let me answer Lord Councillor's question, in that we are forcing youth into agriculture. I've been a farmer before, and I'm still a farmer. Though I don't look to be, that's what people say. I have 2 mother gardens in my district. I planted cassava crops and I'm giving out stems for free. But 2 days back, because the demand was too high, I went to Namlonge to ask, I wanted to buy some stems, cassava stems, to give out to the people as a youth. But they told me a sack is 25,000. And I had to buy over 100 bags. It was too much. We have to be practical. I'm giving out jobs to the youth in my districts. To the youth in my districts. What have you done to your community? You can do nothing if you are not practical. Because youth in town or in Kampala, we just think of, if I want to get money, I have to belong here, I have to belong here. And some days later, I realized that they form groups because they want to get money from big politicians. They form groups. Today we are going to BSJ, a certain face-to-faces. Tomorrow we are going to Museveni, another face-to-faces. In that way, we are not going to develop as youths because we want to get money on a silver plate. And I would recommend that to recognize all forms of participation in politics as youth, all forms, community, international, all forms. We should not let those posts be taken up by elderly people. Now we are going for LCs, for LC elections. But most of the people who have registered are elderly. As if you, as youth, we come out, we have that theoretical thinking that all LC ones must be above 50 years, which is not true. As youth, we should come out. That's the campaign I'm trying to put in my district. that we should come out because we are the people who are going to enforce law and order. If we leave these questions to the elderly, we are going to be left behind. But if we come in this policy making, we shall see our country moving forward. Thank you.
There is a brother of mine who talked about the president still being a member of parliament. I already cleared that, and even Professor knows the process that a bill moves to become law. But also the president is a human being. He cannot come up to constantly refuse to assent on a bill 3 times because it will come into law without his signature. No president would want that. So the moment Parliament takes the bill, the first time, the second time, he just has no option but to sign, because in other words, it will become law without his signature. Then Roy came up, guild president from Akere, was telling me it is not a favor, but government has to give, because these are your rights. It is not a favor anyone. I didn't say it is a favor. It is not a favor. You have the right to present this, to talk, to do anything as young people within the constitutional mandate. Then you are comparing development in 3 countries, in Botswana, Malaysia. You know, I'm an economist. You don't compare GDP at a given point in time, because different countries have different challenges. You can find, when you look at a country, I was in a certain country in Europe, and their GDP is so high, but most of the money is going into heating expenses. They are spending a lot of money because of the bad winter that they have. So you cannot compare these things, copy and paste and say these ones are doing so well because they have grown so fast. I think we should come back to our Ugandan policy, work towards achieving, and we get steady progress in this Kisanja Akuna Mchezo. Then we talked about youth economic empowerment. I think this is key, and we should work so hard. It should be the role and the business of each and every Ugandan, young, old, elderly, to ensure that young people are empowered economically. If we have an economically empowered generation, we are going to develop Uganda quick and fast, and we are going to fast track youth development and rejuvenation in this country. I think this is where we should go, and we should all work. And then we should work with government. We support our beloved president. We support our members of parliament. We support our executive. We support professors like Professor Mwambusa Dewesa. They present philosophical views to this country that help us grow.
Let us demand, not request, demand. And once demand and supply do not balance, you cannot have a thriving economy. Isn't it what economists say? In Uganda, we have got more supply than demand in terms of politics. Supply is the state, demand are the people. We need to balance supply and demand. If demand exceeds supply, you can also have a problem. But if supply also exceeds the demand, you can also have a problem. Today, as I talk, demand is very low. We need to step up demand, and some people who can step up demand are the youth, but they cannot do that unless they are empowered ideologically, and they know what they want, and they can hold those in power accountable. The National Youth Council. Is the National Youth Council supposed also to engage in debates about policies of government? Are we supposed to interrogate government policies? Haven't the youth government policies so far failed? Why? What are you doing there? You want to do like Abawas was telling us, you want more with the same? You want more use livelihood funds and whatever funds. We are not saying those funds are not necessary, but can they be done differently so that they have an impact on the livelihoods of the youth, rather than being patronage handouts for the people to vote accordingly. I would like to end on something which I want to remove from my friend, if he can accept it. Somebody talked about survival for the fittest. Survival for the fittest is in the natural world. You get me? It is in the jungle. What is to be human? Human being, by the way, at the risk of touching raw nerves, human beings are not created by God. God created biological beings of higher mental faculty than other animals. But he did not create human beings. Human beings were created by people, socially constructed. You agree with that? Go and rape somebody of 3 months. People will say you are not a human being. Because socially you have done something that is not acceptable by the society. So for you to say that we should remain in the jungle, survival for the fittest, because some German philosopher talked about it or whatever, is wrong. We are not here talking about survival for the fittest. We are talking about human relations that can be socially constructed in a manner that promotes social justice. Are we together? Which are the countries with the highest human development indices in the world? Do you know them? We are talking about development, but for me, my indicator of development is human development more than economic growth. Although economic growth is necessary sometimes for human development, but not necessarily the case every time. Do you know the countries with the highest happiness indexes? Scandinavian countries, Nordic countries. Do you know that they operate welfare systems? Now, welfare systems are not about the survival for the fittest. But the Scandinavian countries are living more than 80 years than you who claim to be not less. So welfare, you can see his mentality. That is Trumpian. That is Trumpian politics, you know, like mentality. He wants to believe that people who are poor are necessarily lazy. Do you want to believe that? No. My take is that poverty is a relational factor first and foremost. Women are the most active people work in terms of labor in the rural setting, isn't it? Yes. But they are the poorest. It's a gender relation. Have you seen it? It's a gender relation. It's not a laziness relationship. I do agree there are some people who are poor because they are lazy, but they are the minority. On a general scale, poverty is a relational question. You cannot tell me that people in northern Uganda are poorer than other regions because they are lazy. It's a relational question. Is a relational question. You cannot tell me that the peasants who are poor are lazy, that they don't work hard. You cannot tell me that the driver of a minister who wakes up the earliest and sleeps the latest is lazier than his minister because the minister is richer than him. It's a relational question. So you have to twist, you have to turn your minds and look at poverty as a relational question. And if you do that and you put it as a factor in your youth citizenship empowerment program, you'll go a long way to go. But if you continue believing that laziness is an act of God, that laziness is an act of providence, that laziness is because of some other spirits, the Pentecostals now tell us what? That because you have got a generational curse, I disagree. Poverty is a relational question. Let us address the relational issues. These issues of youth citizenship, I told you, cannot end. Let us continue. Let us have more dialogues so that we can see how the youth can empower themselves. Stop thinking of being empowered by you. You empower them to remove them. You know, who will empower you to remove them? You have to empower yourself, and the only way, not the only way. The only way you need empowerment is to have an ideological anchor. If you are not anchored anywhere, then you cannot push for citizenship. I carry out some interviews. I'm a member of the board in some NGOs, and we do interviews. One of the questions we ask them is, what informs your actions? What principle, what values drive your actions? When somebody I don't know, I don't have one, I don't, you know? Sure. If you have no values and principles upon which to anchor, the wind can take you anywhere, isn't it? Yes. The wind can blow you whichever direction it wants. The anchor for a youth citizenship is to be clear about the value that you cherish and you are ready to promote. I don't want to say at all costs like Mandela. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. We can't thank you enough for those very insightful thoughts in our minds. That virtually brings us to the nearest close of this dialogue. As I said, keep tweeting, keep Facebooking. The discussion still continues. The dialogue is on the platforms, and I can see people doing a good work here. Please keep doing it on the platforms as much as possible. First of all, I want to thank the Youth Aid Africa for the opportunity of creating such a platform. We can only crave that this platform must continue so that we can learn more from each other, we can keep engaging, with the greatest hope that one day we'll get to that level where the young people no longer become matters of quest, we want this. They can become much more influential in terms of what they want, how they want it, and where they want it to happen. But also I want to thank you, the audience. You have been a very great audience. If I have been very unfriendly, I stand to be forgiven, but that's my work. I was doing my work. I was simply performing my duty. But also you have been very good. Thanks for the ideas. Thanks for the lessons that we have learned from each other. And I want to thank the panelists. You did a very good job. You received the heat from the members, but also we look towards further engagements where necessary, and let's keep the conversation. The discussion about the young people is much more broader, and we can always do better if we are very committed to do things better. Professor, you did an excellent work, and some of these things, we need these informations. And I think the quest that you just made, more of these dialoguing platforms for the young people in a broader spectrum is very needed. And this goes to all of us, the stakeholders, Youth Aid, we can only make more appeals to you that create more of these platforms. In summary of that has been from me. My name is Kennedy Oluma. I have been the one guiding you through today. Can I request all of us to give ourselves, including to whoever, can we give ourselves a very big hand clap?